What's up, everybody? So Blue Productions here. Tailor, Holley in the house. Special guest commentator, my man Clayton Nash. Clayton, tell the people what's up.
Hey, I'm just glad to be here, helping out, ready to show you an awesome course.
We appreciate you. Feature card here: Matt Orum, Gannon Buhr, Cameron Colglazier, Sean Portilla. This is the 5th edition of the Weapons of Grass Instruction. Bringing this to you here on the one and only Trace Gold course here in Tupelo, Mississippi. Clayton, bring us in with this first hole. I do know you designed this course, so please go ahead and tell us everything we need to know.
All right, well, hole 1, it's a good starter hole. It's not too long, 306 feet, but it's very low ceiling, and it's a sneaky uphill, and it's also a sneaky downslope to the left. And I can also tell you that on this day we had a pretty good headwind.
Okay, so the play here, I guess, is what you're telling me is kind of you want something low, it's going to flip up to flat because you got to worry about everything flaring off down the hill to the left.
Yeah, you do see a lot of, he's going backhand, but you do see a lot of sidearms and even some backhand rollers.
Backhand roller, interesting. Maybe we'll get lucky and see one of those. Cam probably play a mid-range here, I would guess, maybe, or a little fairway driver.
Looks like a fairway driver.
Oh, Lord, T-sign there. Had to step over the T-sign. Good little slide action there. Beautiful shot.
Yeah, let me look. That looks like a roller. There you go.
You called it, Clayton. There's the roller.
I was turning a little too fast on him. One of the things I like about the roller, though, it's pretty easy to get your 3 at the worst case scenario.
Just ensures that you're going to be up the hill to the right, correct? And not have to worry about anything. That makes sense.
Yes, and that's high, and that's the low ceiling that's going to get him more than likely. Because usually that's what happens, that high seat or the low ceiling, that's really the only way you're going to get a bogey more than likely, or an unfortunate rollaway, which...
It just, if you hit ceiling early, that makes sense. Gotcha. Nice upshot there from Matt. Good recovery. Again, like you said, as long as you get majority of the way up the fairway there, going to make sure you get the 3. So, good starting hole, though. I like it. You just got a chance to really capitalize on a birdie that seems to maybe get a stroke on a lot of the field here.
Yeah, because this can be a beast of a course, so it's a good kind of warm you up hole. But at the same time, like you said, you need to get it if you want to play well.
Come ready to play out of the gate. Oof. A little short there for Cam. Did have a look, though. That's, like you said, what you're asking for is just some kind of look on this hole to get started. Worst case, you take the par. You're doing just fine moving on. So.
And one of the things, like with Cam's putt, kind of what I was saying, like that's a sneaky uphill. The camera doesn't necessarily do it justice, but he was pretty good bit below the basket.
Gotcha. A couple tap-ins here for these guys.
You definitely don't feel bad to start with a 3, but I think at the level of these guys, you definitely would like to get a 2, I'd say.
Gotcha. Especially on a 306-foot hole, right? But again, all of the lead card here taking the 3s.
Yeah.
Just don't want to take the bogeys with it. You don't want to start off with the negative energy and negative vibes. So take us in the hole 2, Clayton.
All right. Well, this is a 447-foot par 3. What makes this one interesting is it's a very attackable par 3, especially if you have distance. But as you see, as you get closer to the basket, you got out of bounds right, you got out of bounds left, and they get closer.
So does that out of bounds wrap all the way around on the backside back here behind the basket?
It does, yes.
Gotcha. So almost, the longer distance you got, the more risk you're taking pushing into this hole.
Right.
Which is something I always love. I think that's great as a good open hole. The riskier / reward is what you really want, right? You really want to test these guys.
Right.
Really reward somebody for a great shot, but obviously, penalizing if they don't execute it. So that to me looked like a fairly safe hyzer shot.
Right. That double tree right there, that's kind of like the mark for a good safe. You're not being too aggressive. You're, leaving yourself right at circle's edge, I'd say.
Gotcha. And it's like Cam got to play skip off the road here, which I would assume is probably a fairly common play.
I would say so, yeah. It's very tricky, though, because the road starts moving back left toward the basket, so like this that hits right of the road never skips back in bounds.
Never comes back in. Oh, and Sean unfortunately catching early limbs there. That's going to make the hole extremely difficult and probably play into that if you saw this hole was playing at a 3.66 average over the weekend. So a lot above par. And a shot like that obviously going to probably end up hurting that average. So Matt also playing what seems to be the pretty safe hyzer approach shot. Like you said, I think Clayton, just to get yourself that 40-foot look here is probably what you're looking for from these guys.
Well, I think what played into their decision is we had a pretty stout headwind on this hole.
That's right.
So, like, I mean, you can obviously see it on his shot right there.
Whoa.
That's crazy.
Little cutter down the hill.
But I definitely...
and there you talked about that left OB. You know what I mean? Something you don't really think about, but if that disc stands up and were to roll all the way left, you've got to play with that left OB as well. So,
or people get scared of the right road off the tee shot, so they saw off their shot, and then next thing you know, you could go out of bounds left.
That makes sense. Matt with a putt here.
Oh, wow.
Like top nub. I don't know if a lot of y'all were to watch the last tournament that we filmed, but Matt seemed to have trouble keeping his sunglasses on, so we're going to pay attention to that here, see if the sunglasses stay on today. Solid putt there for the 2. Cam going to have this birdie look as well, looking to be right about circle's edge, maybe just inside. A little short. And you see him warming up the hand there. Just hadn't quite got going early.
I definitely think the headwind played a factor as far as how they attacked the hole, because you say everybody came up short. And this is definitely a hole in their wheelhouse as far as distance is concerned.
Sure. Would have been really easy to roll that disc over into headwind and be OB right early off the tee and have an extremely difficult hole. So great birdie from Gannon, taking the early lead there. Sean, unfortunately, with the bogey. And then Matt and Cam playing a little safer. Outside circle putts, didn't hit it, taking the par. So take us to hole 3, Clayton.
All right, well, hole 3. This is one of the easier, I'd say, shorter par 4s, but it's still, every hole has its teeth. You got this little low ceiling gap if you want to go up the middle. I don't think you're going to see any of these players try that, maybe Sean. And you just want to lay anywhere up in this flat area, up this where this clean grass is, good clean run up. And then you just kind of have this nice little downhill, another low ceiling shot. You got water about 40 feet behind the basket.
So a smart 2-shot hole here. Play your tee shot in the fairway. Then make sure you're a little short and play the ground play on the approach shot, it looks like. So
right. You're going to see more of your bigger arms take this big sky Anheuser. It's a lot more attackable for their amount of distance.
So now, Clayton, that shot he threw there, is that going to get through those pines or probably going to be in some trouble?
He definitely hugged a little tight. It all depends on how friendly the trees were to you.
Gotcha.
It was hard to tell from here where he finished at.
And you're right. Most of these guys taking this big Annie line, trying to flex in here. Now, Clayton, is the left side of the road OB, or everything here is in play?
Only the road plays as a stream.
Only the road. Okay, gotcha. So worst case, if you play the big Anheuser and you flare back out left, you're at least in bounds.
Right.
Gotcha. Yeah, a very common shot there. All 4 guys played it.
Yeah. And you see that's where that road comes into play. He was unlucky to stay safe, but that tree kick almost got him.
Almost got him, for sure. Is that a hold?
That looks like a good shot from my angle.
Interesting little couple of poles here in the fairway, just to add some distraction to these guys. But this should be right up Cam's alley. And ground play here crucial. I don't ever stress that enough, I think, to people that you see a lot of guys that throw certain shots in tournaments and they get frustrated where the result is based on the ground. It's like knowing your dirt or your mud or your pine straw or whatever, very crucial to allowing your disc to land. You know, here you got some some pretty dead area which to get you some slide down to the basket, so you can afford to be 20-30 short and get that slide in.
And I think that's important here because I feel like the water rarely comes into play, but it's still in the back of your mind.
Sure.
Just knowing it's back there, it's only 40 feet, you definitely can't come in hot. And because of the ceiling, you can't just throw a floater shot. You're going to have your good speed control.
And yeah, I think, Clayton, back to what you said on the first hole here and re-emphasize the second hole, I think wind for sure a factor. Haven't really seen it, but you can tell right here with the trees. We definitely got some wind floating around. You saw those 2 guys both come up short on their putts. Cam with his first birdie. Good solid hole for him to get the first birdie on and get started. Matt also going to have a birdie attempt here.
And what I love about this course is, I mean, you got holes like this. It's probably considered one of the easier birdies, But in reality, there's no easy birdies on this course. Like, there's not a single stretch of holes where you go, okay, I got a bogey, so I'm gonna go on this birdie run.
Gotcha.
If you start thinking that way on this course, you're probably gonna get caught.
You looking for quality? What if we told you our steaks start with wood? It's cut, it's dried, and then used to fire our one-of-a-kind grills. Our prime cut certified Angus beef steaks would taste just like any other prime cut steak if we didn't do it our way. Seasoned and cooked to perfection. Now that's quality. Cut and dried. Harvey's. A difference you can taste.
Shout out to our sponsors. Appreciate Harvey's and Infinite Disc for sponsoring the tournament. Always great to have guys being invested in disc golf, being invested in local tournaments, and obviously in Subway Productions. So we appreciate you. So Clayton, moving on to hole 4.
All right, hole 4. This is where the teeth of the course begins. As you see, you had to hit a nice little gap off the tee, and the gap continues to get to tighten as you get closer to the basket.
Tighter and tighter.
And then once you get to the base here, it's a straight uphill shot. Another low ceiling. Seems to be a trend on this course.
Yeah. Well, and again, what you said here, I think, is on the last hole is very crucial. It's like, it's a birdieable hole, right? You hit a gap, you lay in the fairway, and the upshot's not as difficult, but hitting this gap and pressing forward on the fairway is tough. So pars are not bad. Birdies are not necessarily bonuses, but where you pick and choose to get those birdies and where you can attack is very key to playing this course and managing, at least from what I've seen so far.
Yeah.
That's a good low line shot there.
A little sawed off. He's going to be leaking left. And as you can see.
Tight fairway, man.
Yeah.
Tight fairway.
Because this hole, not only do you have to hit gaps, but you need to finish straight too. Yeah, see, he finished in the fairway, whereas you see Cam kind of leaked over to the right a little bit, and he's going to be pinched off just a little.
Same situation there.
Yeah.
Finish just a little right. Which I feel like, I don't know the course necessarily as well as you, but Clayton, if you finish a little right, it seems to be the woods aren't quite as dense maybe as the left side there. So
Right.
Oh, and man, that needed like 3 feet inside of that tree, and that shot result is 10 times better. And unfortunately, Matt getting a hard kick to the left. So we'll see how he chooses to recover.
Yeah, that anti-skip didn't look pretty. He's going to be in tough shape over there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as you can tell, these guys are a little pinched off. So what's tricky about this shot is like, how aggressive do you want to be to play for a long putt?
Right.
So
Cam looking sky.
Yeah.
Sky, ain't he? We'll find out in a minute.
Yeah. That over the top shot definitely works, but the problem is those are cedar trees and they catch everything.
Sure, it's like, is the disc going to come down or is it not, right?
Yeah.
And how long are we going to spend finding it?
And it doesn't look like he got through.
Smart up shots from those guys though, just playing around the circle, not trying to get too aggressive. Take your medicine. Again, 4s aren't bad here. Pars are good scores. Oh no.
Well, I was about to say you could see the advantage of being in the middle of the fairway. He actually was able to push it up closer to the basket and actually have a look for a birdie.
Hey, what a great putt from the knee to save the par. Fantastic.
And that's good composure after hitting the first thing in front of you. That can definitely rattle the nerves a little bit.
No kidding. Yeah, because it's like you hit that tree and it's like, oh, great. So I had the birdie look, and now I got this par look, and if I miss it, it'll turn into a bogey from 30 feet. Mm-hmm. So great composure there. Star par, I'd say that's solid score from good grouping of guys.
I would say so. I think where Matt landed, and he pushed up farther than I thought he did, but you could definitely get trapped over there.
Yeah, for sure. So take us hole 5, bud.
All right, hole 5, another good placement shot. It's not a long par 4, but it's very precise. You just need a nice little hyzer shot, but it's a little sharper than a typical hyzer, so you can't just launch on a disc. A lot of good pros will just go mid-range or a low-speed fairway driver. You want to land somewhere back right in here, and then you just have a nice little gap shot with either a low-speed sidearm mid-range or a putter shot. And then once again, you got water behind the basket about 30 feet. Tall grass kind of helps keep from getting some bad rollaways, but if you air it too hard, you can definitely find it.
So Clayton, how much percentage of the time would you say that the water comes into play here on the upshots? Pretty often guys not land in the water, but are floating over the water to approach the hole in a correct way?
I would say the water doesn't really come into play too much on this hole because good shots are coming up in front of the water.
Gotcha.
Those are 2 great drives.
Yeah, those both look like beautiful drives. And like you said, it's more of just a controlled tee shot here, right? You're not worried about the power down the fairway necessarily. We're just trying to get, 330 or something, maybe 300 off the tee and be in the middle of the fairway. And I would say it's pretty good grouping of shots there.
Yeah, Gannon pulled his just a hair, but he did kick back to the fairway. And Sean looks like he stood up a little bit. He got most of the way down there, so hopefully he should be able to save the par. But I think he might be just a little pinch from the birdie angle.
Yeah, and just to let the viewers know, we were informed by Mr. Andy Burns himself doing his scouting report that Gannon recently had knee surgery, if I am correct here, and so that is why you will see him throwing off of 1 foot on those forehands. So pretty impressive. A guy who just recently had knee surgery to be able to still throw forehands, but has figured out how to throw them for the most part about 80% off of 1 foot. It's managing it pretty well. So.
That was a good shot by Sean. You could see what I meant about him being pinched off because he had to really work that disc and through the gap, and it's really hard to get all the way to the basket, but he should have a look. Whereas Cam and Matt were in prime position to attack this pin.
And I always find it interesting. Not interesting. I mean, these guys are good, obviously. But you take guys like Cam and Matt, and they do nothing but throw backhands 90% of the time. And so to be able to still throw a quality forehand when asked to is always impressive to me because they just don't throw them a lot, but they're good enough to be able to command it where they want it. And obviously you saw them both come in a little early right. But again, not wanting to flirt with the water is going to be the natural lead there is to end up a little early.
Yeah, as far as what you asked, I think that this is a hole where the water more or less gets in your head than it does actually. You don't see people going in the water, you just see people coming up short because of the water.
Gotcha. And Cam is really boring me with his technique right here. It's just, oh my. I was going to say he's going to make it anyways, but then he didn't. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think that Cedar was playing tricks with him there.
Crazy little kick out. It's almost like the back end of the disc nubbed and then spit out. So, unfortunate kick out. Cam going to take the par. That's one of those that, like, round 1, you're like, I would ever. Round 3, you're really, really mad.
Yeah.
Really frustrated. So I believe Matt coming in, with the only birdie there. So Matt going to take the early lead on the card. But again, Clayton, this is going to be a consistent theme here. 4s, pars are pretty good, and nobody's really mad about them. So moving on to hole 6, can't wait to hear about this 575-foot par 4.
All right, well, this is the infamous levee hole. You have water on both sides. Basically, most players are just trying to land it anywhere on the levee or at the bottom of the levee. There's many ways to do that. You can do hyzer drivers, sidearms, mid-ranges, putters. But the big arms actually have an advantage. They can actually kind of go for this bigger landing zone there. This pushes past the water on the left. And then from there, it's a pretty easy chip up to the basket. But there is a rope on the left. It's about, I'm going to say, 25 left of the basket that comes into play. And then, of course, the road's just 20 feet behind the basket.
Interesting that you would have a hole built on a levee with water right and water left, and play as the easiest hole on the day. But I think what you said is key, Clayton. It's like these guys can push basically past the majority of that problem area and not have to fool with it, which is you're going to see here. So
Right.
just going to be able to rip it out there straight. And Cam just barely getting over that.
Like it plays a solid 430 or so to beat that corner, but we have swirling winds today, so I mean that's not so easy.
Uh-oh.
And see, that's generally what happens. You go for it and you flip it and it has no chance.
And that'll be our first OB of the day or of the round.
And definitely not the last.
I feel like if you don't have that 430, this hole gets infinitely harder, right? Which you see Sean played a brilliant shot there. For someone who doesn't, it's like you really have to play a controlled, mid-range or whatever shot down the middle.
And it's the drop zone.
Carry. Oh yeah,
That's a good
Great shot in the drop zone.
The drop zone is very manageable, and I think that did help the scores. It's only about a 330-foot shot, which is right in these guys' wheelhouse.
And that's a very good point. It's like after seeing that, it should be, for a lot of guys, you take the risk and you end up in OB. You've got a friendly shot to basically take the par on the hole. So
he definitely rolled that over. Mm-hmm. Well, he was barely safe.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Just barely got. He's even down there in the mud.
Mud definitely playing a factor, causing to saw it off a good bit.
Yeah, I always think that's like the one equalizer in disc golf is footing, right? It's like when you, and we all like to not, we do and we don't like to make comparisons between ball golf and disc golf. But it's like the one comparison and all that to me that helps neutralize things is footing, right? If you don't have footing, you can't step into a disc. It really brings certain players back to the field based on what they can and can't do. So you saw it from Cam there. He had no step up, no run up into his shot, forced him sawed off early, and he's going to have a longer putt here to try to get this birdie.
Mm-hmm. And like Sean had to resort to a roller to get out of the woods, and he looks like he rolled across the road out of bounds.
Not the easiest putt here. You got the low pine trees. You got to get under. You got to get the putt up because you're uphill above the rim.
And I can promise you it was windy today.
Yeah. Yeah. Clayton, I'm going to make you put $1 in the jar every time you say the word windy today. Maybe by the time this video's over with, I'll have $100. We'll see.
You might after these nets roll.
Beautiful par save there. Beautiful par save from the OB. Again, like you said, 330-foot shots manageable, which I think will allow these players to really get a little risky. Unfortunately, going to lose a disc if you go OB, but still take the par and be able to move on.
And another thing, that plays a factor that, like where Sean had to lay up off the tee, is he had a harder run up because he was on that hill, and that probably had a lot to do with him throwing that shot into the trees because, I mean, it's a lot harder to throw that shot when you don't have a good clean run up. It kind of goes back to the point you were just making.
Right, and there you go. He took a double bogey because of it. So moving us on to hole 7, and oh my goodness, Clayton, 1,055 feet.
Yes, this is the first par 5 of the round, and it can arguably make or break your round. You got a road and left that's out of bounds on the left.
So road and left is OB. Okay.
That's correct, and water on the right. And generally you have this first landing zone right here, which is what most pros were playing for, and that's the golden spot. And then a lot of times you lay up for your second shot, really kind of playing chicken with the water. Some of the people will challenge the water and make your last shot easier. Others will play it farther back, and it's safer, but then leaves you a longer shot into the green. And then, of course, your last shot is over the biggest portion of the water. And the road and the water never leaves. They're with you the whole way.
And you know what's crazy is you go from literally the easiest hole in the course to the hardest hole in the course, back to back, or at least what played that day, right? I'm not saying that necessarily that the last hole is the easiest hole in the course, and this is the hardest, but that is how they played during this round. And for players, it's like, geez Louise, man, like I gotta get my birdie, and now I gotta manage this 1,100-foot hole, and that needs to sit down and not flare. Oh, I don't think that's good. I don't know.
That looked like
that appears to be in the road. Yep.
And that hurts even more because it looked like he was just playing safe.
What a tough landing zone. And that's going to be an OB.
Well, those guys all look like they were playing safe. That's the actual landing zone. If you're going for birdie, is probably about a 350-foot shot. Looks like Sean's going for
like
that.
Sean's going for it. Yeah.
No, we didn't get it
That
though.
also is a big. Good gracious.
So these bigger arms, they have a slight advantage on this hole, even though they didn't necessarily show it here. Is they can lay up and still push one on their next two shots and hopefully get a birdie look.
Right, into that second landing area you're talking about. Which I feel like from what we've seen so far, the first landing zone is pretty tough. Getting to the second one, not quite as hard. And then obviously approaching the green is a little more tough. But that second area looks to be as manageable or more than your first and third shot. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of green here I feel like to land in. But yeah, that tee shot is quite tough. And there's the area, if you can see here just in front of Cam, is where you were talking about if guys want to get aggressive, they get a little more green to work with, but you've really got to push that full distance to get there. And that's a nice shot from Cam, pushing up the fairway. And that'll allow him to maybe attack here and at least save his par.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of neat because the hole is basically built by just three little inlets, two small ones and then one big one that you have to cross at the end.
Going to come out a little left and underneath the tree, but it'll be fine.
See, he should be looking about maybe 400 or 420 from the basket from there.
Yeah, and I guess at this point, if you're in this little gap fairway, Clayton, correct me if I'm wrong, and you know you can't make it to the basket, there's at least enough grass there. And it's a little slimmer, obviously. The bigger arm you have, the more advantage you have here, but at least you can get across this inlet and just go ahead and play for your five. Kind of what Sean's trying to do there. Mm-hmm. Needs to go just a little. Yeah, and that's just fine. Again, he knew he didn't have the arm to get all the way to the basket, so it's like just try to find a landing area there.
Yeah, because that could be a tricky spot because you only have two options. Either you play it to the smart spot or you have to lay up again.
Pitch up literally like 60 feet, right?
Exactly.
In front of you. This has got work to do from that. This needs a lot of love.
And that's the kind of danger you can get into because, once again, we had a pretty strong headwind on this hole. And when you get trapped 400, 420 from the basket, that plays a much bigger factor. Whereas if he'd have went for the first landing zone, he could have pushed it up for the fairway like Cam did and just had an easy hyzer to the basket.
Right.
Whereas he was forced to flex something to the basket, which brings in all kinds of fun.
Fun. Debatable on your definition of fun. But a great recovery shot there from Matt. So I believe that's 1-2 in the water, 3, drop 4, throws 5. He'll get out of here with a bogey. Not the end of the world, right? You took the risk. You didn't get to the basket. You get the bogey, and it's okay. He's got a 2-shot lead right now on everybody else on the card. So, not the end of the world. But it's such a dynamic hole, right? It's like you throw that, and you're sitting there on that drop shot, thinking, well, if I don't park this basket, I'm about to take a huge number.
And I think that's what happens on this hole. It's not necessarily the hardest hole to play, but it's definitely the kind of hole that you can tin cup in a heartbeat.
Right. That's a good reference. Tin cup, I think, is a good reference.
Because there were definitely, I think that's what plays into the average. Like, I don't think there were necessarily more bogeys per se or bogey type strokes, but there were definitely more 9s and 10s and certainly 8s and 7s and numbers that inflate the number.
Sure. And Sean, I think, played that hole for his distance as good as you could play it, right? He played it very well. Played the smart shot early. Still ended up with the 6.
Only because he went out of bounds.
Right, he did. But he on this tee shot, correct. But
Right.
he tried to play the smart shots, and he played it through the rest of the hole. So props to Cam for taking the par there, getting back within 1 of Matt, and moving us on to hole 8.
All right, hole 8. So 458 par 3. You're teeing off pretty high above the basket, but there's water all on the right. There is a road out of bounds left, but that really doesn't come into play that much. There's a string up here guarding the next teeing area. That's also shouldn't come into play unless you're just playing really, really safe. But this hole sits about, I'd say, 30 feet from the water, and it's very attackable, but you definitely have to trust your disc.
Yeah, I think for a lot of these guys, maybe trying to play that 420 to 30 foot shot and just leave yourself the 30-foot putt. But now Cam taking dead aim. Oh no, what a bounce. Wow. You saw that wind bounce there that really scared him. I mean, he was on a great line off the tee, and then a wind bounce took him down, but fortunate to get back out across. Matt gonna need some love here. Oh, hit land, but I don't believe stayed in.
Didn't look like it. So I might add another $1 to the jar and mention once again that you definitely got swirling winds. You can see the wind playing with their disc. And that's what makes the birdie so hard to get.
Yeah.
You know, this distance is certainly in their wheelhouse, but
Gannon played more of what I think I would have played. It's just like, you know, if you really don't feel confident with 450 on hyzer, you definitely just kind of play the early left here. You don't even flirt with that. Like, that's Sean getting a little out of his game, I feel like, because should have just, you know, played a little more hyzer and landed early left.
Mm-hmm. I mean, more than likely he was going with an overstable disc that he trusted, but once you get over on it, that wind just doesn't let it do anything once again. Sean is known around Tupelo for his ability to throw putters and mid-ranges really well. That's probably the bread and butter of his game. But you get a hole like this, it's wide open with the wind pounding you. It's really hard to control those kind of shots. I think a lot of these guys, especially the longer throwers, they're throwing these really overstable discs that you just don't care what the wind's going to do.
Right. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you know, we've got guys around here that are the same way. I mean, you take a guy that can go rip a woods course with no wind because he can throw putters and mid-ranges however and wherever he wants to, and you put him out on a place like this where he's got to control wind and over water and very different a style of the game. Something you got to really adjust to, and it does not bode well when the wind is blowing for those guys.
I mean, because this hole, even on a normal day, you really need to trust your disc, because if you're going to put it inside a circle, you're flying the majority of your flight over water unless you're a lefty. But then you get this kind of wind, now you got to trust your disc that much more, and then hope the wind doesn't do anything crazy to your disc.
Right, completely agree. So Gannon with the safe 3. Looks like Matt and Cam are going to have just, you know, barely missed putt 3s. And I believe that puts Sean at a 7, unfortunately. So a couple of OBs there. And then a short shot, an up putt, and a tap in. So taking us to the final hole of this front 9, par 3 at 369 feet.
All right, hole 9, just on 369 feet. This hole will feel kind of easier after the last few holes you played, but the way I said earlier, there's no easy holes on this course. There's a string on the right and behind the basket that is protecting the other fairway, and that could certainly play a factor. I'd say the string on the right's maybe 30 feet, and then the string behind the basket's maybe 25, maybe 20. It's pretty tight, so you definitely have to keep that in mind when you're trying to get closer to this basket.
Yeah, and Clayton, for the viewers, I'll just say I haven't quite noticed all of the strings, so I'm glad you're bringing that up because they're really, really hard to see. But as you see to the left side of that screen, there is an OB string there. These guys are also having to take into account. It's not just road and it's not just water. Mm-hmm. There is some marked OB here. So really making some demanding shots, even on a 369-foot par 3. And you're right, a hole that should feel much easier after what they've just played, but equally as hard based on the OB that is surrounding them. Fantastic shot from Matt there. And Matt needs a birdie again, right? Had a couple of holes, a couple of hiccups, given a couple strokes back to the field, so wants to get going here.
Like Sean's going for the under the branch shot. That's normally more of a wintertime route, but if you have the skill to hit the gap, it's certainly there. And it does make the hole play a lot shorter if you can hit it. Looks like he left this just a little bit low, though.
Yep. But what he did there was take all the OB out of play, right? 100%. Not going to have to worry about the OB.
Yeah, the only thing he has to worry about is hitting the branches.
Oh, hello. Nice. Nice putt. Little thumbs up to the crowd. Well, the card in front of him or whoever he's looking at. But great putt. Good too. There's Matt with his 2. Cam. And Matt will be next. Matt with the CTP of the group.
And what top players generally do is they made that hyzer look easier than it really is. That tree off the tee is, I mean, it's multiple trees that are so close together, but it's bigger than it looks.
Yeah, those guys are having to go way right. I mean, way right with a really power hyzer to get that disc all the way back to the left of this hole. So you're right, Clayton. So there you go. Front 9 wrapped up. Matt and Cam. Matt giving a couple strokes back. Cam getting a couple good birdies at the end. Gannon one back. Sean struggled a little bit, but we're going to move to the back. And as you know, Clayton, Trace Gold, anything goes on this course, right? So good front 9 here. Get ready to check out the back 9. Clayton, thank you so much for being here. Looking forward to you being on this back 9 film, telling us all about this course. Shout out to the sponsors. Appreciate you guys, and thanks for everybody for checking us out.